State will come to order. Madam Clerk, will you call a roll, please?
Council Camara?
Here.
Council Casey?
Here.
Council Dennis? Council Coolin?
Here.
Chairman Kilby?
Here. Before we begin, I wish to extend my condolences to David Dennis, City Councilor, who has a loss. I believe it was his father-in-law. He's at his wake this evening. So our thoughts and prayers are with him, and we wish his family well. Tonight, on the agenda, we are going to take action on two schools, the NB Borden and the Osborne School. And at this time, we will be handling the Osborne School first. We have three bids on the Osborne School: the Women's Institute, Mr. William Lucas, and SB&A Realty Group. Before we begin the meeting, are there any initial votes that have to be taken by the committee with regard to any of the requests for proposals and whether they meet our requirements? Yes, Councilor Casey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd just like to ask Arlene if all the RFPs have been submitted with no conditions on, or are there any conditions on any of the RFPs?
Okay, on the Osborne School, as you said, we received three bids. The Women's Institute, they did on page 16 and page 17 of their proposal. If you want to look at it, or if you would like me to just turn to it. On the bottom of that page 16 on the Women's Institute, they want to enter in an agreement with the city that gives sufficient period of time to conduct proper due diligence of the property prior to taking title of the property. The studies include, and they go on, for building inspections, environmental testing, environmental review, market study, appraisal, zoning review. They continue to say, if the project is determined to be feasible based on the results of these studies, we would begin architectural and engineering work required for permitting process. So in essence, what they're doing is they're conditioning their proposal on these studies and these their proper due diligence of the property prior to taking it.
Any other questions, Councilor Casey?
Which is basically conditioning their bid, which is the same fatal error that Word did in their proposal for the Belisle School. So in the in my estimation as purchasing agent, and I have conferred with Corporation Councilor, this does not meet the responsiveness of the proposal.
Thank you very much, Arlene. Councilor Torres, would you elaborate on the fact whether it's for sure it's conditions, or whether it's something we should be looking at, or whether because they didn't do the RFP properly? Would you address that, please?
Arlene's correct. The problem is that there's a specific requirement that says they want to require environmental assessment before closing. That's inconsistent with a provision that requires that the building be sold as is. The essence of an as-is is you're taking the building in its physical condition with any accompanying environmental risk assessment. And when you put as-is in a proposal and the response conditions it on an environmental assessment prior to closing, it's a non-responsive proposal, as I indicated last time. Unfortunate as it is, because we've seen some good proposals set aside because of that. The as-is provision was something the council chose to put in the RFP, and we need to be bound by that requirement.
Thank you very much. With that, I make a motion to leave to withdraw.
There's a motion to leave to withdraw. Is there a second? Motion's been made and seconded. Want a roll call on that? Roll call, please, Madam.
To give the Women's Institute RFP grant leave to
Yeah,
withdraw.
before we vote, one further comment. I believe that that position has been backed up by the Inspector General, Attorney Torres, is that correct? There's been some communication, and they gave a advisory opinion with regard to this
Well-
being a proper action?
That's my understanding.
Okay.
Which it's unusual for them to give any advisories in writing. They usually handle bid protests, so if, they put out their position in writing on a specific case that may be in front of them,
Okay.
entirely inappropriate and not something they would do,
Okay.
in my opinion.
Okay, thank
That's, it's very, so. it's-
Counsel Pullen?
Usually what they'll do is they'll give you a copy of a case that was similar and let you figure it out.
Okay, thank you, Counsel.
And I know Eric had some conversation with them.
Yeah, I had an opportunity to speak with the Inspector General's office, and as Corporation Counsel said, they give a generic, very general opinion. They can't get into specifics unless there's a case pending before them. So they didn't actually look at the RFPs or at the responses. But in general, what they said is if you have a request for proposal that states you're taking it as is, and then if you have language that would suggest that would be conditional, that you're not taking it as is, that would be grounds. What they called it, setting up an appealable situation, whereby if you award a property to somebody that included that conditional language, the other bidders could thereby challenge. And speaking with the purchaser, I think part of I indicated, I think that part of the confusion maybe, the city had language in some of the RFPs that I believe talked about a 180-day period. And some of the bidders, I believe, felt that if they, certainly if they were asking for more time than that would have been conditional. But if they asked for that amount of time or less time than that, then they felt that that wasn't necessarily conditional. But that would all be, again, if one of the bidders felt that they were slighted, they could certainly issue an appeal to the Inspector General. And then at that point, the Inspector General would look specifically at the matter and at the RFP and at the proposals, and then they would issue a more specific opinion at that point. But that's it.
Okay, thank you,
Thank
Counsel
you.
Pullen, for your research and your insight on that. So move the question, roll call, please. Move the motion.
On the motion to grant leave to withdraw to the RFP from the Women's Institute, Counselor Kamara?
Yes.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Dennis? Counselor Pullen?
Yes.
Chairman Kilby?
Yes. Now we need a motion to refer that action to the full council.
No, that would be to refer with the recommendation.
Okay, very good.
Granting leave to withdraw.
Okay, so that leaves us with two possible bidders here. I would first call Mr. William Lucas to the table, if he's present. As we did prior, we'll allow a 10-minute, 15-minute presentation. Mr. Lucas, believing he's not present, is there anyone who, notwithstanding that he's not present, wants to speak in favor or opposed to this proposal? Okay, that being said, we will call down SB and A Realty Group, please.
I just put them back there. With some green ones.
Just one. Have a seat. Welcome. We're getting your chair. Before you give your name and address for the record, please.
Sure.
Ayla Mushtaq. I'm the owner of SPND Realty Group,
And what's your address, please?
10 Purchase Street.
10
Fall
Purchase
River,
Street, Fall River.
Massachusetts.
Mohammed Mushtaq, SPNA Realty Group, and I'm just here to support her.
Very good. What would you like to say, either of you, with regard to your proposal?
Okay. Mr. Chairman and good evening, council members. We're a local institute. We established our organization here in the last couple of years. And with the growth of our activities, we were looking for something which we found right here. Not only we have the current operation of SPNA Realty Group, but we're also bringing a dental care facility here. And our plan is, as we drafted in this proposal, that the two level will be utilized for two different operation. One will be for a dental care facility on the first level, and the second one will be the real estate coaching center on the second level. With the activities we're planning, this will bring some professional activities to the neighborhood. Not only that it's going to improve the building, but also it will bring some, it'll improve the quality of life of this area too. Our activities will also improve the employment situation here with the focus we have with the initial startup of this business. The dental care center will have about 10 plus new employees working in this facility. So that's been said, if we're given a chance, we'll prove that we're committed to this cause, and we'll do our best to fulfill it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Councilor Casey?
Just before the meeting, you had showed me a draw out of it, and I didn't recall it being in the package. I think it's something that we would all like to see.
Absolutely. This was something which I did for this proposal. Unfortunately, the time when I was submitting, or we were submitting this proposal, it was not here. But I can certainly send a copy of this to all of you for your review. This is going to look, the building itself right now, a lot of green site and pavement of the driveways, improvement to the structure itself. You can pass this on.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Casey. Any other questions? Okay, at this time, and we have, oh, you can retire, you can have a seat.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else would like to speak on this proposal? Okay, and at this time, we have before us the minimum criteria that was put together by our purchasing agent. And correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Robinette, but notwithstanding the fact that William Lucas did not appear, he still did make, he qualified, so we still have to rate him on the sheet as meeting the minimum criteria.
Correct. You have to put a check mark for responsiveness under each one of these criteria that was addressed as a minimum criteria. And in the RFP itself, it did specify that the proposals that do not meet the minimum evaluation criteria are excluded from further consideration. It goes on to say that the proposal must include the following information and attachments clearly identified and indexed.
Council Torres, is your opinion that both of these applicants meet the minimum criteria?
Upon my review, my notes show it's responsive.
Thank you. Question, Council Paul?
I was going to make a motion, Council.
I believe we have to do these, the subjective or
The comparative,
the
which I
comparative
which I will,
criteria
yep,
before we make
which I
that
will
motion.
pass out to you. If everyone could sign their minimum, please. Hand it back. This is the oldest one. You could pass them to the committee members, please. Now, the second tier of this process is that you will now take the proposals that have been determined to be responsive and now rate them
Yes.
relative to their merits. This is the minimum, yeah. If while the committee is doing their evaluations, if for the audience that is here tonight, just so that everybody understands, we do this with three rating categories: highly advantageous, advantageous, and less than advantageous. And the first criteria is the site development proposal. In order to obtain a highly advantageous rating, the proposer would have to give a detailed site development proposal to include listings of types of tenants, building design type, lot improvements to be completed, an estimated cost breakdown, schedule of all phases of construction, estimate for proposed improvements, and it should be prepared by a Massachusetts certified architect, professional engineer, or construction estimator. For the advantageous rating, conceptual site development proposal with an estimated cost breakdown, timetable for all phases of construction, including questionable schedule, cost estimates, improvements as prepared by a development team. And less than advantageous would be incomplete development proposal and/or cost estimates. Sure. Yep. I have an extra one here. Comparative. I don't have any more extras, so if you mix them up, I have. Mr. Chairman, would you like me
Yes.
to continue with the different criteria and what constitutes the advantageous, highly advantageous? Okay. The second piece of criteria is the developer's credentials. For a highly advantageous rating, the proposer has to provide variable evidence of having successfully completed at least 4 or more similar rehab or new construction projects in terms of use, size, and cost within the past 10 years. For an advantageous rating, the respondent has to provide evidence of having successfully completed at least 2 rehab construction projects in the past 10 years. And less than advantageous would be providing variable evidence of having successfully completed 2 rehab projects, at least 2 rehab projects within the last 10 years. The next piece of criteria is the compatibility and beneficial reuse. Highly advantageous is proposed reuse is compatible with other uses in the neighborhood and beneficially reuses the building or parcel in light of the surrounding use and neighborhood needs. Advantageous proposed reuse is in harmony with the overall zoning scheme, does not require significant relief from zoning for its overall development, and less than advantageous would be proposed reuse requires significant relief from zoning requirements and/or special permits and is not in harmony with the existing uses or needs of the area.
Thank you.
That's it.
Attorney Ozenjo. Okay, you have any questions? Any questions, Council Camara? Okay. At this time, we would entertain a motion. Council Poulin?
I would make a motion to award the Osborne School to SB&A Realty Group Incorporated.
Second, by Council Casey. And, yes, Council.
One more comment, Mr. Chairman. In the north end, with the Highland School, the city and the nonprofit neighborhood group were collaborating together to revitalize the playground at the Highland Park area. And this committee had asked the administration if the proceeds from that sale could go toward the revitalization of that playground. I just wanted to note that the Kennedy Park playground, the city is also collaborating with a nonprofit neighborhood group. Both the NB Borden and the Osborne School are in close proximity to that playground, so I would ask that the committee consider making the same request of the administration. I know that the bid amounts for both NB Borden and the Osborne School are particularly high for the proposals that we received, but I think every little bit would help with that, so I'd ask the committee to consider that, take that in consideration. We did it for the north end. I would hope that we would extend the same courtesy for the south end of the city.
Make a motion to send that letter to the mayor requesting that?
I'll make that motion after we vote on the first
Okay.
motion, yeah.
Okay, motion to, oh, sorry, Council Casey. Last time you said you were too short, but you're not too short.
Thank you.
There you go.
Sorry.
Thank you. I'd just like to bring out something to this committee, and I certainly would ask if I could get Mr. Pacheco from DPW down here to speak on something.
Okay?
Yes, Mr. Pacheco, how much has been taken out of your budget to address the upkeep of these schools, these empty schools, and also the money that's taken out of your budget to have some of your workers have to go in and show the schools? And is it a cost to your budget?
It is. Probably since we took the schools over, we've spent well over $500,000 in electricity, moving expenses, snow removal, some upkeep. We constantly have to board windows up, and we still have thousands of dollars worth of moving to do as these buildings are sold, taking desks, chairs, and so on out of the buildings. So there is quite a bit left to do.
It's quite a cost to the DPW. How are you going to recoup any of your money to put into your budget to address the needs of your department?
Sell pencils, I think, Counselor.
Sell
I don't.
pencils?
I don't see that. I mean, obviously, the buildings are not selling for an exorbitant amount of money. So, as they go, it's just that much less we take care of, and that much less expenses we have going forward. And the quicker we move the buildings, the better I'll like it.
But I know how short-handed you are.
Absolutely.
And you're working, with a tight budget, and being short-handed, I think that I certainly am very concerned. And I thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And Arlene, if you don't mind, I know there's been some cost in your budget for putting these schools out to bid.
Correct, Counselor. The advertising to this date is pretty close to $3,000.
Close to 3,000.
Correct.
Mm-hmm. How are you going to recoup that for your budget?
We're not.
Okay. With that, I'd just like to make sure that the people are totally aware, and I think it's a great idea, Council Poland, you making the suggestion for, trying to get the money that we receive from the sale of the schools to be put back into the parks and that. But I think we have to keep in mind where the money is coming from to upkeep those schools, and I think we have to be very careful asking to have that money put into something where we should make sure that we're taking care of DPW, taking care of the purchasing department, both departments are putting money out to address the concerns. So I just think I wanted to bring that to light, just to make sure that we keep that in consideration. With that, I yield.
Thank you, Councilor Casey. Councilor Pullen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I may, I certainly hope that we're not suggesting using one-time money from the sales of schools for reoccurring expenses. The running of the DPW and then the purchasing department, a lot of the costs that they take on are reoccurring expenses. Certainly, as these properties, such as the Osborne School, if it is awarded to SB&A today, that'll be a property that'll be back on the tax rolls. Our assessor will have to come up with an assessment for it. They'll start paying taxes, and then I'm all for, the reoccurring annual property tax revenue that can certainly go toward the general fund or any other, part of the budget to support reoccurring expenses. But the reason I suggested the playground in the north end, playground in the south end, this is one-time money. That would be a one-time expense for the upgrades. Obviously, if there's any reoccurring expenses for those playgrounds, we can't use the one-time money. But that was my logic for the suggestions. And certainly, speaking with Mr. Pacheco before, I think we came up with an average of about $16,000 per school, Mr. Pacheco. So as soon as we are getting rid of a school, that's saving you $16,000 per school per year. That'll help your budget. And then again, we have the reoccurring property tax revenue for for these proposals. At least the ones that go to for-profit developers will be paying annual property taxes. So with that, I yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Pullen. So we have a motion by Councilor Pullen, second by Councilor Casey, to recommend to the full council a sale of the Osborne School to SBA Realty Group. Roll call, please.
Councilor Camara?
Yes.
Councilor Casey?
Yes.
Councilor Dennis? Councilor Pullen?
Yes.
Chairman Kilby?
Yes. I'd ask the purchasing agent if we need there are only two schools here, so by, following logic, the second proposal is second in order, but do we need a roll call or a motion given that second priority, or a second ranking, so to speak?
Well, because there's only two,
Okay, very
let's
good.
assume that you have number
Okay.
one, number two.
Okay.
But usually, if there was other bids, usually a grant would be to withdraw.
Okay. The question posed to me by the clerk, should we grant leave to withdraw the proposals that we do not accept, or do we still have to go to full council with the option to override, well, it's 4 votes? If I phrase my question
Yeah,
correctly.
in accordance with the law, you only have to, those proposals that make it to the second tier are the ones that you take into consideration as the number one, number two proposal. The ones that were dismissed, so to speak, after the first one because they didn't meet the minimum criteria, you do not have to.
Okay. Councilor Bullen?
I had looked into this a little bit more and also had a brief conversation with the Inspector General and looked at the law. I think the purchase is speaking to state law, what we have to do by state law, and she's absolutely correct. But the state law also says that we have to keep in line with any local ordinances as well. So I think the clerks would be able to more offer advice on what our local ordinances say in terms of what votes we have to or don't have to take, because the state law is pretty clear about what they require, but then it also says that you should refer to your city ordinances in terms of what's required, because it also has to be in keeping with the local ordinances as well.
Okay.
With that, I yield.
Okay. Any other questions? No comments? Next. Yeah, next. I'm sorry.
Just put this away.
Just to answer what you were speaking to, usually in previous years, any other bids that had been put in
that would not be considered would be granted leave to withdraw. That's usually how we did it previously.
So do we have a motion to that effect?
Usually that might happen, not always the case. I don't think it should happen. If perchance this first bidder doesn't get the financing or doesn't come through with the rewarding of the bid, if you give leave to withdraw to the second bidder, now you have to start the process over again. Not necessary. It shouldn't happen. When I was on the real estate committee last time, we didn't do it that way all the time. We just left it in place, and if bidder A didn't get it, bidder B was still able to get it because the council didn't dismiss it and give you leave to withdraw. I think it should stay sent to the council without a recommendation. After the property is awarded and everything is all set, then you can give leave to withdraw, not before. But I wouldn't bother until they take title and pay for it. With that, I yield.
Okay, that's the pleasure of the committee. We will move on to the second property, which is the NB Borden School. First, once again, similar to the last school, are there any motions to be made with regard to any of the proposals being non-responsive? We're moving on to the NB Borden School. We also had the Women's Institute bid on the NB Borden School with the same proposal and
Motion
on.
to leave to withdraw.
Motion made and seconded. Roll call, please.
For the Women's Institute bid to be granted leave to withdraw?
Yes.
Counselor Camara?
Yes.
Counselor Casey?
Yes.
Counselor Dennis? Counselor Poulin?
Yes.
Chairman Kilby?
Yes. First, I'd like to call down representatives from the Capitol Theater to give a brief presentation on your proposal. This one's first. We only have the first one. That's the same thing. With extras. Okay, we'll begin with Donna, if you can please give your name and hi. Yeah.
Pass the microphone.
Capitol Theater on 390 South Main in Fall River.
Okay,
I think I'm loud enough.
Okay, does it work?
Thanks, man. Hi, Donna Viveras from Capitol Theater, 390 South Main, Fall River.
Ronald Cabral, 210 Robertson Street, Fall River.
Dave Mead, 151 Whipple Street, Fall River, Mass.
would like to begin, and any information in addition to what's in your proposal that you'd like to,
Well, first of all, I'd like to say thank you for having me here, but I was told on the phone that I was not gonna be allowed to speak, bring anything at the meeting, so I didn't bring
Yeah.
any of my architectural drawings,
Yeah, I don't
which
know.
had.
I don't know who told you that, but we,
I was called, along with a letter, but I was called and I was told, at the meeting, you will have no say, you will not be able to speak.
yeah,
So
like I said.
I didn't bring anything at all, so I just wanted to let you guys know that I didn't bring anything with me, but I do have my architectural drawings from, the professor from Colorado, including the boarding school and Capitol Theater, which was bridging the property from my building over to the boarding school and incorporating that into the performing arts.
Okay. Well, like I said, I don't know who gave you that information, but even prior, when Councilor Casey was chairman of this committee, each
Normal,
meeting
that's
that
what
we've
I've
had,
seen.
we've allowed opponents, proponents, and obviously the individuals are bidding.
That's what I thought too, but I mean, right on the phone, I heard them even say in the background, is that correct? And somebody in the background, it was a man that called me and there was a woman in the background.
Yeah,
So, but I
unfortunately.
didn't bring anything
That's
with me,
okay.
but I do have, you know, all my drawings and things like that that I can bring.
Well, thank you. Mr. Cabral?
Yeah, it's an honor to be here tonight to speak about Capitol Theater. That was our past in the last downtown area. And we want to bring something for our children, can see the Capitol Theater. When Donna gave me a call to support this, I support 100% because in our downtown area, we have nothing for our children. And I want to reopen that Capitol Theater once again, so our grandchildren and our kids can see those doors open once again. So we can have performing arts, go see a movie, go see a show, I've been to Boston, New York, everywhere, and see the Capitol Theater, see the videos on YouTube and seeing the Capitol Theater, and it'd be an honor to see downtown. We got like local restaurants that we have a couple restaurants opening pretty soon, and to see that the Capitol Theater open those doors for my the new generation, I would support that 100%. So, as councilors, as residents of this city, please consider this tonight. Thank you.
Mr. Cabral, very much. Sir?
Well, my mother and father, they used to go to the Capitol Theater. And matter of fact, I do support this 100%, the Capitol Theater. And it's good for our kids and everything else. So that would decrease the crime in the neighborhood and around the city. So the Capitol Theater would be just good for you and your family too. So obviously, I consider it too. I hope you guys consider it too.
Thank you very, very much. Council Poulin?
Just a couple of quick questions for the proponent of the proposal. I think it's in the credentials. You talk about being the current owner of the theater, and you're interested in the NB Borden school. You feel would be a good fit. There'd be some synergy between the two. But, when did you acquire the Capitol Theater building?
I believe it's 2006.
2006. Okay. And you feel that you would be able to handle or take on another building in addition to that one? Okay. All right.
With the plans from the architect, he incorporated either having the modern building next door, he actually incorporated all three, and the building across the street. So this, because of the times, we actually need to upgrade and have elevators and escalators and bathrooms and dressing rooms on a bigger scale rather than what it is now. So what I would do, I think I had in my plan, we would actually extend the building out by 20 feet. It would all be enclosed by glass.
The
And
NB
then
Borden?
No, the building that I have now.
Oh, the current Capitol
And then
Theater.
bring over a skyway, a pathway to go across from our building to that building. So costumes, design sets, things like that would be able to go back and forth rather than going through the street and incorporating both the buildings together.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Is anyone else interested in speaking either for or against the proposal? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much.
We'll next call down representatives, owners of the TA Restaurant located on South Main Street, Mr. Kevin Santos, President, and Fernando Santos, Vice President.
Good evening. For the record, my name is Daniel Aguirre. I'm a senior project manager at SciTech Engineering with offices here in the city, as well as Dartmouth, Worcester, and Marshfield. I'm here this evening on behalf of Kevin Santos and his uncle, Fernando Santos, who are the proprietors of TA Restaurant, currently on South Main Street. I'm sure you're all familiar with the area, but if you look at the plan that I've just shown you, you'll see the proximity of the TA Restaurant.
Take it out.
Take it out of there.
No, that's fine. If you see on the plan that you have before you, as well as the larger one, you'll see the proximity of the TA Restaurant located to the northwesterly corner of the NB Borden School. The current property is approximately 1 acre in size and could, by zoning, house at a minimum 12 to potentially 16 apartments. On the plan that you see before you, you'll see that we have provided or proposed 32 parking spaces to the south, which would be the residential parking areas for the apartment building, exceeding a ratio of 2 to 1 per unit. And then also to the north, you'll see an additional 25 parking spaces that would be utilized for the downtown area, the TA Restaurant, and the abutting businesses as well. So this would not be an isolated parking area only allowed to be utilized by the TA restaurant. The project in itself is rather simple. It would be a renovation of the existing school as it currently sits, a rehab floor by floor of approximately $30,000 per unit, which would equate to approximately $120,000 per floor. Times 3 floors, you're looking at close to $500,000 worth of renovation just for the apartment end of the complex. The 2 parking areas, you're probably looking at an additional $150,000 to $200,000 worth of construction cost to construct both the parking areas as well as the landscaping shown on the plan presented. I'd like to briefly give you some information regarding the 2 applicants that come before you this evening asking for your approval of their submittal. I'm sure, as you know, Kevin and Fernando have been operating the TA restaurant for approximately the last 10 years. I think January was just the 10-year anniversary, in fact. During that time period, they've faithfully paid any restaurant tax, personal property tax, rent for the property. They're actually going to be taking over that property this year. They're set to close on the actual purchase of the entire building, which is a rather big undertaking for them, but they've done very well over the last 10 years. They've worked with the city to make their business very successful and build on what had previous owners of the property had done. Currently, the Santoses rent a parking area that you'll see to the rear of the building in the range of some years up to $20,000 a year they've paid for rent for approximately 40 parking spaces in the back of that building. They've maintained that parking lot, they've plowed that parking lot, and the parking lot, again, is not solely for their use. They've allowed other businesses in the area, Baby World, Domino's Pizza across the street, Amazon Chiropractic, few furniture stores in the area. They've all been able to use that parking area by Mr. Santos opening it up to them. He could have said, this is for TA parking only, we don't want you guys using it. But Mr. Santos has been a gentleman that has picked this area of the city to earn his living, to spend his life 7 days a week running and operating this business in compliance with all city regulations and in harmony with all of the abutting property owners, both residential and commercial. We have the O'Brien Apartments that are just east of this property, and Kevin has been a big proponent of supporting everyone in that restaurant. Someone needs a bowl of soup, someone needs someone to eat, someone needs something shoveled. Kevin's been there for all of these people in this neighborhood. Again, he has been an upstanding citizen in the city, both as a man and as a business owner, as has his uncle Fernando. I have here to give you today 2 lists of people in support of the project, and I'll just read a couple of them quickly. We have the owner of the tax consultants of Stevens Imports, Domino's Pizza, Sousa's Mini Mart, Fall River Financial, Baby World, Alexander's Boutique, and many others. So I'd like to submit those to the chairman. And these are all people who are in that immediate vicinity, including the residential renters and property owners of the multifamily dwellings that are just opposite the school on Ridge Street. You'll see on the proposal what we've done is we've kept the residential portion of the property back to the corner of what is residential in use now, keeping in harmony of what both is allowed by zoning and by what currently sits on the property. And then north of our building, in keeping with what's currently on the site now. Mr. Santos has, over the last few years, has constructed and successfully completed many renovations within the TA restaurant. It's a 3-floor establishment. I think pretty much the entire restaurant's been renovated over the last 10 years, I'm sure as many of you know. Over the last year, he also purchased a property directly south of the TA, which is a mixed-use commercial building, and actually just rehabbed that into a new salon that you'll see just coming up of Morgan Street, as well as some residential units above it that are also in the process of being renovated. So he's done very well in past renovation projects, albeit at a smaller scale than what he's proposing at this time. We have put together a fairly extensive development team of reputable architects, contractors, plumbing contractors, electricians, carpenters, all that have worked in the city on multiple hundreds of projects very successfully. So I think Mr. Santos has the ability to complete this project. Again, it's not a very big project, but something that you don't normally see take place on this scale in the city. If you have any questions regarding anything that we've submitted to you, we'd be glad to answer them. And then if Mr. Santos would like to add anything, we'd be more than glad to.
Okay, thank you. Council Pullen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do look favorably upon the renovation and creation of parking aspect. I mean, parking in the downtown has been a hotly debated issue for quite some time now, particularly after the opening of the new courthouse. And I think the city had tried to address the issue with, I think there was some parking garages that were turned over to the redevelopment authority, and they were going to leverage those, I guess, or maybe mortgage those to try to get funding to build parking. But for whatever reason, that hasn't gone forward. So I like that we have a private entity here coming forward with a potential, maybe not a complete solution, but it certainly won't hurt. It will certainly help. So that aspect I'm interested in of this proposal. I wanted to ask one question on the proposed apartment buildings. What type of units are we talking about creating? What type of apartments?
They would be 1 to 2 bedroom market rate apartments.
Market rate?
That's
okay.
correct.
'Cause that's also another question that comes up in the city in terms of low-income housing versus, so your intention is market rate housing?
That's correct. I didn't get into it, but both Mr. Santos's have been in operation on South Main Street, more notably Morgan Street, for 10 years. And they've lived through the difficult times of South Main Street and Morgan Street before we had all the new restaurants down South Main Street. And they've operated and they've thrived during that period. It would only seem like it would be fit for them to have the ability to expand during the good times, now that we have new restaurants down the street, and the courthouse and the expansion of this South Main Street, to give them the ability to expand and to grow on what they've already accomplished in very difficult times.
One thing definitely going, or another thing going for this proposal too, I wanted to commend both the owners. I think they have a very good reputation in the community. As we had with the Highland School, we lucked out with, I think with Dr. Gagliotti, we had someone as well as yourselves that have roots in the community, that are invested in the community, that have built up a reputation as successful business people. And that's one of the things that makes me comfortable with the proposal that you've put forward. But you answered one of my big questions about the market rate, and I certainly, with your reputation, I would expect you to stand by that. So I thank you for answering that, and those are my questions for now, Mr. Chairman. Thank you. I yield.
Councilor Casey?
I've looked over all the proposals like all of us have, and this certainly, to me, would actually be an asset to the area. And I thank you for putting this in front of us. I think the situation, like it was so said already, about the parking, the problem we have in the downtown area and in your area, the whole downtown area, is parking. And by creating parking for, whether it's the businesses around there or your business, I think this is something that is going to create a situation where there's going to be less automobiles on the streets, at the parking meters, and being at your at this parking lot, which will open up more parking area for other people to use in that area. So I think it's a real good proposal, and you've done a very good job, and I'd like to say thank you. I yield.
Great. Councilor Camaro, anything to add? Okay.
If I could add just one more?
Yes.
I'm familiar somewhat with the process, because my firm is working also on the Belial School on another project, and I knew that neighborhood input was a big part of how the committee reviewed each of the proposals. It was my understanding, tough time of year, that this neighborhood group of St. Anne's was going to submit some type of letter in support of our proposal. I don't know if that was done prior to the meeting or not, but I'm just not sure if that were to be read into the minutes if it was in fact done. I don't know if it was.
Councilor Pullen?
I did have an opportunity to meet this weekend with the St. Anne's Neighborhood Association. As I said, they are the closest association, I believe, to both the Osborne and NB Borden schools. I provided the board of directors with copies of both of proposals for both NB Borden and for Osborne. and the board of directors had indicated that they supported this proposal by the TA, and actually they also indicated that they had supported the SB&A proposal. I know that's already been awarded, but the board of directors had, I just wanted to state, they had expressed support this weekend, so you are correct.
Thank
I don't
you.
know if a formal letter's been submitted. I believe I was told that there were members of the board of directors that were planning on attending tonight, but then they could not due to some scheduling conflicts,
Okay.
but that's my
Excellent. Thank you.
understanding of
Thank
where
you.
they stand.
Thank you, Council Pullen. And may I add, that I think that goes a long way. I know this committee and a number of my colleagues really look to get input from the people who are going to be directly impacted by projects. But not to be redundant, but in my mind, this proposal is very doable. And it's definitely going to work for you, and I think it's going to work for the downtown area. Because anyone who's driven by your restaurant, sometimes you see your customers parking on the street. You got school buses going by, you got delivery trucks, you got city buses, CERTA buses. It potentially is a dangerous situation. Individuals are going to and from your restaurant, so it's a doable proposal. Like, you have the financial means to put it together, and it's going to help our situation with parking downtown. Okay. Anything else?
Just that, just to relate it to the parking again, what's germane to this project and regarding the parking is that the restaurant needs the parking actually at a different time of day when the downtown businesses need it. The plaza across the street, Baby World, the salon, the convenience store directly behind the building, adjacent to the property, they all need it during daytime hours. So the TA restaurant wouldn't be occupying the majority of those spots during daytime, around lunch a little bit, but the majority of the time, that lot would be open for the municipality to use.
Yeah, and you do have functions, obviously. and
Correct. So
different
on
things
Friday,
like
of
that.
course, Fridays, Saturdays, on an occasional Sunday night, yes, the TA restaurant would occupy those spaces, and potentially many others along South Main, but the uses do offset each other and allow parking for all of the businesses.
Okay. Anything else?
That's all.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Council Torres, as I asked last time, do these two proposals meet minimum criteria?
Upon my review and my notes indicate that they do.
Thank you, Council. We're going to ask Mr. Robinette to distribute the comparative.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. We'll do the comparative first, and then we'll do a motion. Then we'll be done. I don't think we need, Mr. Pacheco, Ken, I don't think we're going to need your assistance any longer, so thank you. Get someplace to go. I have that one. Yes, after we finish this paperwork, okay?
just wrote a line.
You
on
just
my
sign.
side.
Just-
Yes. We have a question.
My question is, when the proposals were supposed to be filled out and sent in on that day, and we came in and it was due by 11 o'clock, everybody's proposal was supposed to be in by that day, correct? And all their information adhered
Can you put
to
your-
with?
Could you talk to the microphone, please?
And all the information was supposed to be adhered to together to give you, correct? Okay, so that was just my only question, was that all the information, and anybody could take a look at all of those proposals?
I defer to Arlene Robinette on that.
Yes.
Yes. You just said no?
Yeah, well, I don't understand your question. What do you mean, anyone? I'm talking about.
Yeah,
the bids.
we could take a look at them, correct?
They're not the bids.
Yeah.
We were
Once they're
able to
open.
all take a look at them.
Once they're open, you can look
Right.
at the bids.
Okay.
Right. They're sealed
So
until
all
they're
the
opened.
information that you guys received, you received that day?
Yes.
Okay. But the information you guys just got on TAs was not submitted that day, correct? Because I just want to put my information down on the table. I put all my information down that day. They just brought theirs, and I was told I couldn't speak tonight or bring anything.
What?
Yeah, once again, I have no
I
idea
know
who
that,
told
but
you
I
that.
do have all my information
If you
in
could
there,
find
and I
out-
just wanted.
What information do you
If could
feel
give
they
us more
just
information
submitted?
to find out the name of the individual who spoke to, because
It was a man in
I'm
the
sure
office,
that
I'm
didn't
not
come
sure.
from any
Yeah.
department or any member of this, of this committee.
Just want to put together.
Okay.
Once-
This here was in the proposal.
The information,
Mm-hmm.
the information that they gave us is no different than the information they provided.
Okay, no, I just want to
No, I'm glad you did, because it needs to be
Because
clear
I
and simple.
understand that you guys realize that, they're gonna help out with the parking. I have a parking lot. I've had
Yep.
all the businesses use that parking lot.
Sure.
It's my parking lot. It was not TA's. Did he pay me rent? Yes, he did. Did he pay me that amount of money? No, he did not. Did he charge the other businesses to use that lot? Yes. Does it matter whether you think he did or not? No. I just want to put, you know what I mean? I've been paying $25,000 a year in taxes to the city of Fall River, so I just want to put that on the table, along with being in the business in other, in Rhode Island and Massachusetts. Me and my husband own 6 other businesses. I flip real estate, I buy real estate, I manage real estate. Not only am I a member of the Capitol Theater and on the board, I also help run all those other 6 businesses. So I just want to make sure that you guys are aware of that I do have backing before you make your decision. And all my information was in there stating from, people in the area, businesses in the area that also want to see the theater. There be a theater in Fall River, a performing arts center. So I just, want to make you guys aware, and when you check your criteria and you check off everything, I would like to please think of the Capitol Theater and what it could bring to this city.
Thank you.
very much.
Okay?
Thank you. Any other comments by this committee? Hearing none, do we have a motion?
Make a motion, Mr. Chair, that we award the NB Borden School to the TA Restaurant Incorporated.
And second to that motion?
Second.
Mr. Pullen made the motion, second by Councilor Camara. Roll call?
To grant to the TA restaurant, Councilor Camara?
Yes.
Councilor Casey?
Yes.
Councilor Dennis? Councilor Foolen?
Yes.
Chairman Kilby?
Yes. Councilor Pullen?
Before we adjourn, Mr. Chairman, I wanted to make a motion and that the committee consider sending a letter to the administration requesting that they consider putting the one-time money from the sales of NB Borden and the Osborne School toward the renovations of the Kennedy Park Playground.
Is there a
Make that
second?
in the form of a motion.
I'll second the motion.
I'll second it.
Okay, second by Counsel Camara.
It's a consideration, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And on the motion made, I just, before I call on Counselor Casey, we did set some precedent with the Highland School, that we wanted to turn back the money to, to beautify that park, so I think it sounds fair that we should do that with the other neighborhoods. Because the neighborhood associations do work hard. I think we've seen that over the last couple of years more than ever. So I think it's a good gesture on the part of Council Pullen and a good idea. So, Counselor Casey.
Yeah, I'll speak on it if you don't mind. Thanks. I don't have a problem with the suggestion of him looking into it because I know that the mayor also cares about the Kennedy Park neighborhood as much as he cares about the recouping the money that's lost through the process. And it'll be up to his judgment as whether he feels it's most appropriate and best use, and
It's
we
his
should
call.
support that. With that, I yield. Thank you.
Counselor Casey?
Not on the motion.
Okay.
Yes.
Want to vote on that motion then? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? So voted. Counselor Casey.
Just one thing I'd like to bring up before we adjourn the meeting is that I know you requested that I have a meeting with the Sandy Beach Neighborhood Association, and I just wanted to let you know and let all the people out there know that I've been trying to get the flyers all out and all, but Friday night at 6 o'clock, February the 3rd, we will be having a meeting at the St. Anne's Frat, and everybody's invited, and I've tried to make sure that I've had, contacted all the neighbors. With that, I yield.
No, one second. Yeah. Thank you, Counselor Casey. And I will schedule a meeting, sooner than later after the neighborhood association. I would just request, as chairman of the committee, the real estate committee, that at your meeting, you invite all 6 entities that are still on the table, because all 6 proposals did get referred back here. So I would ask, I planned on attending the meeting, and I hope all 6 proposals are there to, so the neighborhood can voice their opinion. Here you go.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I have invited 3 proposals because of legality. It's been stated very clearly that 3 proposals would not be acceptable, like was done tonight and voted on tonight. Certain proposals don't meet the RFP agreements, and I have invited the soccer field. I got confirmation that they will be here, the soccer team. I got confirmation from Kafori, who is looking to build houses there, single-family homes. And I've gotten confirmation from Family Construction to build single-family homes. With that being said, the people have a right after these people show the proposals, and anyone asking questions can ask questions. And if someone from the other proposals would like to speak after, then they would have the opportunity, like everybody else who's invited to the neighborhood, have an opportunity to speak. And I yield with that.
Counsel Pullen?
Mr. Chairman, I would just echo your suggestion, and it's just a suggestion, Counselor. It's your neighborhood association. It's however you see fit. But I just think I have a feeling that no matter who is awarded this school, that there may be a challenge. So I would suggest inviting everyone to present, so that everyone can say that they were able to present. And I would also suggest giving the neighbors or residents, again, just a suggestion, the opportunity to rank the proposals 1 through 6. I think that would help me as a committee member. I don't know how my colleagues feel, but if they're presented, whether if it's 3 proposals or if it's 6 proposals, that neighbors be given a chance to rank their first favorite, second, and third. And that way, in that fashion, if there is one that's thrown out, then we could go to the second or to the third, or because it's certainly something I'm going to weigh in my decision how the neighbors feel. And I think if there's a ranking system, that gives us a sense of how they feel about the different proposals. And then obviously if 1 or 2 are thrown out, we could look at the next one as being the most favorite, if you will. So that's just a suggestion. With that, I yield.
All I want to say is that this is a real estate committee's dispose of two pieces of property, and
Exactly.
you guys
We're
take it to
getting
the next
away from what
level.
was on the agenda.
I think everyone here can communicate with everyone and tell them what your intentions are. We don't need to be doing this on
I agree, Council.
public real estate committee meeting.
Okay. Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn?
Second? All in favor? So
Aye.
voted. Good night.